This video is sponsored by Paradox Interactive. Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at the wonderful world of Crusader Kings 3 and trying to get everybody set up for success. Whether that means leading a dynasty that flourishes and leads kingdoms across the land, or one whose family tree is less of a tree and more of a ladder, Crusader Kings 3 leaves the definition of success up to the player. Whether you're a veteran or a newcomer to the series, this video should provide you with some crucial insights, tips, and things to look out for as you begin. Timestamps in the description down below will help you jump around if you feel you're already familiar with some concepts, and future guide videos on this channel will get into the grittier details, but this video itself aims to set you up for a good, well-rounded start as you dive in. With all that said, and without any more time to waste, let's begin. The character and who you play. Those familiar with the series will be aware of a core concept that sets Crusader Kings apart from other strategy games. In Crusader Kings, you play as a single character and their line of inheritance, and you win, so to speak, as a family. When you start a new game, the first step is to pick a character to play as. The game gives you a selection of start dates and characters that are particularly interesting choices, but if you click here, you can choose to play as literally any emperor, king, duke, or count on the map, each with their own advantages and struggles. As you scout around for an option, you can see some details here. Your liege and heir, if applicable at the start of the game, your name, age, faith, culture, dynasty, and primary holding. But these are only some of the relevant details. The rest you get when you start the game. Your liege, if you have one, is a rank above you, and you are beholden to them, serving under the laws of their realm, paying taxes, responding to calls of war, that sort of thing. If you're in charge of an independent realm, you won't have a liege, and instead will be at the top of the political food chain. You will always have an heir. This is the person that will inherit your primary title when you die, and as long as this heir is a member of your own dynasty, your game will continue, and this heir will become your new character. As such, it's very important to secure an heir in your dynasty, and it's also very important to raise them right, but we'll touch more on that in just a little bit. One of the first things to note is that every character has a lifestyle and subsequent focus. You can choose the focus for your own character, and your focus will give you a variety of benefits while also giving you experience points in the lifestyle the focus is a part of. As you gain experience points, you'll be able to unlock perks in the lifestyle, and they can do everything from increase taxes, to improve battle prowess, to unlock certain actions, like abductions. A deep dive on the lifestyles would take us a fair bit of time and is beyond the scope of this video, but we'll check them out in detail in a future video. You'll notice these lifestyles are split into 5 distinct categories. Each of these ties into character skills. Every character, your own included, has 5 primary skills: diplomacy, martial, stewardship, intrigue, and learning. And each of them has a number of things they impact, with some core elements that are important to keep in mind always. It's also important to remember that these values are randomly generated every time a new game starts, so don't expect the same character to have the exact same start every time. This adds some unpredictability and replayability to each character. Now, somebody with high diplomacy will see others have a better opinion of them, and will have more success with diplomacy schemes they undertake, such as swaying people in an attempt to improve relations, while low diplomacy will hurt both of these aspects. It's very important for people to like your character. Vassals, liege lords, and even your own heirs that dislike you might cause you some trouble. High martial skill makes a character better at leading an army in battle, and it also ensures they're able to raise more troops from their holdings and reinforce them faster, and again, a low martial skill will have the opposite effect. High stewardship increases the taxes collected from holdings and also increases a character's domain limit, which is the number of counties they can personally, directly control. A low stewardship has the opposite effect. The intrigue skill is a reflection of shadier capabilities. A high intrigue skill increases the chance of detecting hostile schemes that target the character, and also increase the chance of their own hostile schemes succeeding. Murder plots, kidnappings, claims of their liege's thrones, and even the fabrication of hooks. High intrigue also makes it easier to imprison characters when needed, a great way to get rid of troublemakers, but also to make a quick buck by ransoming them, or to show people you mean business through torture, or even to potentially learn some juicy secrets that you can use to your advantage for blackmail or as hooks against other characters. A low intrigue skill doesn't have any negative impacts, it just doesn't provide any bonuses. Finally, high learning increases the rate of piety increase, makes it easier to convert people to the character's faith, and reduces the prestige cost of increasing crown authority, an act that gives you more power over your vassals the higher it is. Learning is also especially important if your character is the cultural head. A ruler of a specific culture with more land than other rulers of the same culture is considered the cultural leader, and they are able to pick a technology as their personal fascination. The higher their learning skill, the bigger the difference this will make in how quickly the research is completed. Low learning doesn't provide any bonuses. The last item here is prowess, a secondary skill that is a reflection of battle prowess as an individual, and the higher this is, the better a character is likely to fare in duels and personal combat. Each point of prowess is particularly important for people serving as knights, as each point gives better damage output and toughness, impacting their survivability and how much they actually help during a battle. All of these skills are often directly impacted by status effects and your character's traits. There are far too many of these to talk about each individually, but in general, both of these are acquired through lifetime events, actions, and decisions, and there are personality traits, commander traits, physical traits, lifestyle traits, fame traits, and the education trait, each of which are earned through different actions. Further below, you'll find the selected character's dread rating out of 100, their personal wealth, which is equivalent to their realm wealth if they're the person in charge of a realm, and the same goes for their prestige, their piety, and the levy they have access to, which is the number of soldiers they can raise. Further below, we can start talking about your realm. As an individual, you don't have direct control over everything, and this continues the core distinction between Crusader Kings and other strategy games. It's important to understand where those lines of control begin and end. Hovering over a character portrait, such as your own at the bottom left corner of the screen, will highlight that character's realm on the map. This realm is what falls under their direct and indirect control. This is where they draw taxes and soldiers from, and this is the territory they must protect, develop, construct on, and expand. A character's primary title is shown here, and the rest of their titles are shown here. While the game includes lower titles, playable titles are at a county rank, duchy rank, kingdom rank, and empire rank. The titles themselves are given flavored names. A county is the equivalent of an earldom, is the equivalent of a walaya or a sheikhdom, or point being, as cool as the flavor is, pay attention to the rank of the title, as those are the names we're going to use to talk about them. One person can hold multiple titles. They can be at the same rank or across multiple ranks, and they determine what classifies as rightfully belonging to the person in question. There is a limit to how many county rank titles a character can hold, and that's expressed as their domain limit. We can also see the titles a character has a claim on, as the rightful owner, but doesn't currently hold. Further below, you can see the vassals that serve under the character, and hovering over their portraits will highlight their personal realms on the map that they hold in service of their liege. Between the titles and vassals of a character, you will find the entirety of their aforementioned realm. The details of your realm can be seen in the Realm tab. The size of your realm, your level of authority, your domain, your vassals, and your succession line and laws, something that really needs talking about separately so you can make sure to keep control of everything that's rightfully yours. Now, under the Domain tab, you will once again find any county rank titles you hold listed here, alongside the taxes you earn and the warriors you can raise from each. You can find any empty holdings in your domain listed here, and unless your culture or government type prohibits it, you can construct new castles, cities, or temples at those empty holdings. And you can actually construct these in any holding, even if it's not in your own domain. These three holding types are respectively ideal for providing more soldiers, more wealth, or a middling amount of both. You can also build buildings at any holding in your realm, again, whether it's in your own domain or not. It's important to keep in mind, though, that when you build something within your own domain, you reap 100% of the benefit from it. Anything that is built in a part of your realm that is not your own domain will only give you a percentage of its benefits. We'll touch on that more when we talk about vassals. Now, anytime you select a county, you can cycle between the holdings within and see what buildings exist in each. Empty slots can be built according to the holding type, and existing buildings can be swapped for others, while both existing buildings and the holding itself can be upgraded down their upgrade path. These all take a long time to construct, and the benefits might feel negligible, but they do add up across multiple holdings. You'll also find in the realm screen the aforementioned domain limit. This domain limit is what brings about the need for vassals, so let's shift our conversation a little and talk about managing vassals. If you hold more county rank titles than your domain limit, you will suffer reduced income, and any existing vassals will also be upset at you. To avoid these issues, you can give up direct control of a county rank title and grant it to somebody else who will take on the duties of that title while serving under you as a vassal. These people become your direct vassals, giving you part of their income as taxes and providing you with part of their soldiers under your service as warriors. This is why, as we spoke earlier, it's important to improve your own direct holdings first before improving those of your vassals, because while you gain 100% of the improvement you make in your own holdings, you only get a part of that benefit from your vassals' holdings. The Vassal tab here will list all of your vassals, and it will also indicate your vassal limit, the maximum number of direct vassals you're able to have without penalty, as determined by your own primary title's rank. So a king can have more direct vassals than a duke. So as you conquer more lands, you'll reach your domain limit and climb the title rank ladder. To stay under the domain limit, you'll give some county rank titles away. As you continue to expand and you keep giving county rank titles away, you'll want to give some of your duchy rank titles away as well, so that rather than having a bunch of county rank direct vassals, you'll have fewer duchy rank direct vassals under whom those same counts and countesses serve as their direct vassals. For the same purpose, you can simply redistribute vassals, transferring your own low-rank vassals to some of your mid-rank vassals. Another reason to do this is because of the concept of the rightful liege. A vassal pays reduced taxes and raises fewer levies for a liege who doesn't hold the title directly above them. For example, one of your vassals might be in charge of a county rank title in a duchy whose title you don't hold. This duchy rank title might belong to a different vassal of yours, or it could belong to somebody outside of your realm entirely, which is an even bigger concern. It's important, as such, to keep the hierarchy of titles organized and make sure each vassal is contributing the most you can get out of them. You also want to make sure you never give somebody a title that has the same rank as your primary title. If you do that, you'll be granting them their independence. Titles can be granted to existing vassals or to unlanded members of your court to raise new vassals. It's a good idea to pick vassals based on their skills and traits, Just like your stewardship and martial skills impact the taxes and soldiers you gain from your realm, the stewardship and martial of your vassals impact the taxes and soldiers they gain from their realm, and that in turn impacts how much of each you get from them, since you get a percentage of what they get. This percentage you get is determined by different factors depending on your government type. There are 3 types of playable governments at launch. Under the feudal government type, vassals have contracts called feudal obligations that you can adjust once per vassal character. Raising them without giving anything in return is an act of tyranny, and either way, you'll see penalties to opinion from a vassal who has higher obligations either in tax or levy, and it's even worse if they have higher obligations in both. Under the tribal government type, vassals provide tax and levies as a reflection of their liege's prestige. The higher the prestige, the higher the contribution. The concern here is that when the liege dies, their heir will likely start with significantly less prestige more often than not, and thus the realm would take a hit to income and military might. The clan government type, meanwhile, sees vassals provide tax and levy contributions to reflect their opinion of their liege. The more they like their liege lord, the higher their contribution. Under this government type, it's extra important that vassals like you. Even outside of this government type, it's important to keep vassals happy, especially powerful ones or those with high intrigue skills. You want to make sure they like you, and it can become difficult to manage many powerful vassals, especially since the more powerful ones will demand a seat on the council. This set of 6 seats is crucial to the proper running of your realm. The spouse is able to assist you by supplementing your skills across the board by a little, or by supplementing one specific skill by a lot, depending on their own skill, that is. The other council members each utilize one specific skill and perform their tasks better the higher that skill is. The realm priest can't always be assigned by you, depending on your faith, but you need to make sure that whoever it is likes you. The realm priest collects taxes and has access to the troops of all the religious holdings of your realm, and if he doesn't like you, he'll withhold them from you. The rest of the council members can be reassigned as you wish, though keep in mind, people get upset when you fire them. Each council member will randomly fire events depending on their skill and the task you've set them on. These can have positive or negative impacts, and outside of having high skill council members, they're largely out of your control. There are a few assignments you can give your council members that work differently to how they did in Crusader Kings 2. Your chancellor, the diplomat, can swap between foreign affairs and domestic affairs whenever you wish, and they work to improve relations either with those outside the realm or within the realm. If they have a low diplomacy skill, though, they can hurt these relations instead. Your steward, the taxman, can be set to collect taxes across the realm, increases the taxes earned everywhere rather than at a single county at a time. They can also be told to increase development or promote culture at a county-specific level. Each of these take time to accomplish. A more developed county will provide more taxes and levies and will also have a higher supply limit, something we'll touch on in a bit. Cultural conversion, meanwhile, is important to ensure that people are less likely to stand against you. Marshals are able to organize levies to increase levy and garrison sizes as well as reinforcement rates across the realm, or they can be set to train commanders to reduce maintenance costs of men-at-arms and possibly improve or find new commanders and knights. Finally, marshals can be sent in to improve control at a county level, which can remove corruption as it slowly works to improve the control level of a county to 100. An important thing, as any control level below 100 will hurt tax and levies acquired from the county. Spy masters, meanwhile, can help protect you against hostile schemes targeting you, can help your hostile schemes themselves, or they can be set to find secrets anywhere. Secrets that you can use to blackmail people inside and outside your realm. Finally, let's touch on the realm priest again. They're able to improve religious relations to increase your piety at the same time, and they're also able to target specific counties for religious assimilation. Much like cultural differences, religious differences can cause people to rise up against you. Finally, realm priests are the counselor responsible for the all-important task of fabricating claims. Send them into a foreign county and wait for them to perform this all-important task that leads us into our next topic: how to acquire land. You might remember us touching on a very important concept earlier, the concept of the rightful owner. In Crusader Kings, this concept of rightful ownership comes in the form of claims to titles, and the de jure territories of said title. De jure and de facto are opposing terms that you should get familiar with. While not exact translations, an easy way to think of it is that de facto means that which currently is, and de jure means that which should legally be. When you hold a title, you have the right to all the territory that should legally be part of said title. For example, the de jure territories of the Empire of Francia include the kingdoms of West Francia, Aquitaine, Burgundy, and Brittany. But you don't need to hold all of these territories or titles before you proclaim yourself emperor. You only need 50% of the counties in a kingdom to either create the title or usurp it from somebody else, and you only need 80% of the counties in an empire to create that title or usurp it instead. Once that's done, you can push to acquire all the de jure territories that fall under the newly acquired title. In the case of our Empire of Francia example, that might involve war with Brittany, Italy, and Savoy. Acquiring that initial 50 to 80% of counties might require taking the same approach at a duchy level, where you conquer a certain percentage of counties and then claim the duchy title as your own to conquer the rest of the counties, or there are a few other options. Fabricating claims using your realm priest is the most basic way to extend your realm. All it costs is time and money, and once the claim has been fabricated, you can declare war on the title's holder and fight to push and acquire your claim. Beware though, liege lords have a duty to protect their vassals, so if you push your luck, you might find yourself, a petty count, facing off against a king or queen's wrath. Keep an eye on who you're actually declaring war on. Another way to acquire land is by pushing the claims of people at your court. These can be existing vassals or unlanded members of your court. You can find claimants in a few ways. The Court tab has an option to invite claimants that you can use if you have enough prestige. Claimants will then arrive over time, and you can pay to recruit them to your court and then push their claims. Alternatively, you can go looking for claimants by searching characters and looking down this column here. Find somebody with claims to land you want to acquire and try inviting them to your court. It will cost a bit to employ them, and you might need to use a hook if one is available. Another way to find claimants is to simply select the territory you wish to acquire, click on the title flag, and then scour the list of claimants to see who might be willing to join your court. Remember, these claimants do not have to be at the county level. You can push claims for an entire duchy or even a kingdom. Just make sure that if you're going to declare a war to push their claims, you want to make sure the rank they gain is lower than your primary title rank. Otherwise, you're just helping them form an independent realm. You will be told if the ensuing war will result in a vassal or an independent realm. Some governments and cultures will also allow you to conquer territory without the need for formal claims. For example, some can declare a war to conquer counties and duchies or to subjugate another lord, but this comes at the cost of piety or prestige. Outside of war, you can use murder as a tool to gain more territory as well. At a variety of times, you or one of your vassals might be the heir to territory outside of your current realm. A great example is the Italian king being the heir to the kingdom of Lotharingia, because the two kings are brothers, and the Lotharingian king's kids are all bastards who can't inherit. All it would take then is for an unfortunate accident to befall the Lotharingian king, and the Italian king would then acquire the title and associated territories of the Kingdom of Lotharingia, including all the claims to all the territories that de jure belong to that kingdom. Another less violent way to acquire territory is to offer independent rulers of a lower rank the option of becoming your vassal without the need for war. Simply right-click on your potential target and check your chances. Should they accept, remember that vassalage is a two-way street. Sure, they'll serve you, but you then become responsible for their safety and happiness. Also remember, you can only do this for a leader of an independent realm at a rank that is lower than your primary title. Marriage is another great way to acquire holdings as well. Titles pass on as inheritance from both parents after all, and there are many ways to arrange succession in your favor. Something we'll discuss in a future video as it's way too broad a topic for today. But with this discussion comes a rather awkward conversation. Where babies come from and how to raise them. Kids are the future, which is why some dynasties come to an abrupt end, and to ensure yours doesn't, you'll want to have kids and raise them right. Beyond having kids to take over your primary title on your passing, you'll also want to have backup heirs, kids who can be given other titles, kids who can be given important responsibilities on the council, kids who can lead armies, kids who can form alliances through marriage, and kids who can inherit other titles and become kings, queens, or emperors in other parts of the world. Children can come from a lawfully wedded couple, a leader and their concubines, free and extramarital affairs. Depending on the laws of your religion and realm, only specific children qualify as heirs, so keep an eye out for that, and the pedigree of a child can often influence what others think of them. Illegitimate children might be disliked and are more likely targets for disdain or assassination, a not-so-ideal situation for your primary heir. You can romance and seduce other characters by right-clicking on your target and choosing the associated option, though each of these takes time and effort to produce results. You can select a concubine if it's in keeping with your culture and faith by simply selecting your character and using the on-screen directions to do so. Marrying a character is the most universal and simple option, and as a lord, you won't just want to look out for your own marriage and children, you'll have a say in the lives of your extended family, vassals, and court at large, and you can use this to your advantage as well. For characters under 16, you can set up a betrothal instead, and that betrothal can be turned into a marriage or broken when both of the pair come of age. Setting up a betrothal is an excellent way to get a quick alliance if you're sending one of your own sons or daughters off to be betrothed to somebody who's from a different realm. A great way to acquire allies, let's say. Now, to marry or betroth anybody, including yourself, you simply right-click on the character and choose to either arrange a marriage or find a spouse. The first option seeks a spouse in your own court, and the second seeks a spouse across the known world. You can organize these lists based on a few factors, and there are quite a few factors in selecting an ideal spouse. You want high-level skills, so they can assist in ruling. You might want to form an alliance, or you might want somebody with claims you can push. Now, when you select a target from the list, there are a few more things to look out for. Which house will the children be born into? Remember, the dynasty matters. Typically, children will be born into the male's family unless the marriage is set to be matrilineal by checking the box to do so. The chance of children is important to keep in mind if that is indeed the intent. Inheritable traits can be good or bad, and the likelihood of them being passed on to the children is determined by how many of the parents have the trait to pass on. The final thing to consider is the cost or increase in prestige resulting from the marriage. High prestige increases people's opinion of a character and also gives them access to more knights if they're a leader. This is important for yourself and for your children, especially those that will inherit titles. If everything looks good, you can send the proposal, though the likelihood of it being accepted depends on a few factors. Once a couple gets married, children are likely to follow, though of course, not a guarantee. When a child does come, there are quite a few things you can do to hone their skills. Up to the age of 6, the child gains skills incrementally every year, influenced by their parent. This is why it's important to be picky about the parents. When they hit the age of 6, they can be assigned a guardian, or they can be kept under the tutelage of their parent. When choosing which to do, consider the childhood trait of the child. Certain traits lend themselves better to certain types of educations, so you'll want to select an education focus accordingly. You'll want them to have a guardian that excels in the associated skill. If you yourself are in charge of a child, whether it be your own or somebody else's, various decisions will arise that will impact the traits they gain as they grow older. Otherwise, it's out of your hands. When the child comes of age at 16, they gain their education trait. There are 5 education traits, one for each skill, and each can be earned at a level that reflects the quality of education received. The better the match between the childhood trait, the education focus, and the guardian, the better the result here. Now, at times, you won't want your decision to be dictated by the childhood trait. At times, you need a child to fulfill a specific role, and in that case, you'll want their education focus and guardian to reflect that instead. The education trait will suffer as a result, but who cares what the child has an aptitude for? You're here to force them into the role they have to fill. Train children of the realm to be soldiers, stewards, spies, or whatever else your realm needs. Either way, once they become adults, they take control of their own lives to a degree, but now you can employ them in a variety of roles, and hopefully, you've honed them for said roles. War. War is another unique process in Crusader Kings, though any familiar with Paradox games and previous Crusader Kings games will find themselves at home. War cannot be declared without a casus belli, the justification for war. Examples include subjugation of another lord, invasion for the purpose of acquiring human sacrifice, or pushing claims, as discussed earlier, however they might have come across your table. War can only be declared for a specific objective, so make sure you have that set appropriately. You cannot declare war for one claim and then acquire multiple when you win, even if you utterly crush your opposition. So, if you've spent your time and effort acquiring the claim on a duchy, do not mistakenly push an older claim for a small county inside it instead. You can check the potential outcomes of the war should you lose, draw, or win. This includes the gain or loss of claims, titles, wealth, prestige, and piety should the occasion call for it. You can also see here who you're actually declaring war on. As mentioned before, sometimes a war to acquire a lesser title will pull in the liege of the target, and allies on both sides can be seen here as well. They might not answer the call of war. It's best to be prepared. Declaring war costs prestige or piety depending on the type of war, and when it starts, a small icon showing the target's flag appears at the bottom with a percentage below it. The percentage is the war score, and it sways from negative 100%, meaning you're losing the war terribly, to positive 100%, meaning you're winning the war decisively. Should it hit either extreme, the winners can force a peace on their terms. That means you will suffer the consequences of a loss at negative 100%. To the same effect, when it hits positive 100%, you can enforce your demands as per the objectives of the war. War score is tipped by holding the objective as set by the declaration of war, winning battles, occupying enemy holdings, and taking valuable prisoners, something that can happen on winning battles and sieges. Capturing an heir in battle, for example, gives a 50% bump to war score, while capturing the ruler gives a 100% bump, and it can lead to an immediate victory or loss. This might be a good reason to keep your own leader away from the front lines, but you also want to make sure they don't get caught out in a siege. You also might just not want to have a cowardly lord, but that's a different matter entirely, as is the option of having a intentionally weak army led by somebody you need taken care of. All talk of declaring and winning wars is great and all, but you're not going to have a good time unless you know how to go about raising and managing armies. Armies consist of knights, men-at-arms, and levies. The lowest tier of troops, levies, are pulled from all the holdings in a realm, those belonging to the lord directly, as well as their vassals, in accordance to the percentage they contribute from their own holdings, as discussed earlier. Men-at-arms, the next tier up, are pre-acquired, and they represent a special type of soldier trained for specific types of fighting. Each counters another type of men-at-arms, and each is better or worse on certain terrain types, and some are good at speeding up sieges. They cost money or prestige to recruit depending on who you're playing as, and they can be upgraded to larger sizes to avoid using up the limited number you can have, as determined by a variety of factors. It's a good idea to hover over enemy armies to see what kind of men-at-arms they use, and then recruit the types that counter them. Men-at-arms are a bit more complex than that in their entirety, which is something we'll probably discuss in a future video in depth, a little out of the scope for today's conversation. Now, they take some time to get up to full strength though, so don't leave their recruitment to the last minute. Finally, knights are the elite fighting force in your armies, individual characters whose prowess determines efficiency on the battlefield. They're acquired by recruiting people to your court and allowing them to be knights, or by putting out a call for knights, and they can be absolutely essential in turning the tide of battle. The final component of an army is its commander, but to get there, we must first raise the army. Armies are raised at rally points, and you can either move one around by selecting it and right-clicking on any holding you own, or you can set multiple as you please. Clicking on a rally point on the map or in the military window will allow you to either raise only the local forces at the rally point, or raise your entire army at the rally point. You can also raise raiding armies using rally points if you're planning on going on a raid, an option available to tribal governments as a way to acquire wealth and prestige. Now, it takes time for an army to muster, and once it has done so, you can select the army with a left click, and at the bottom left corner, you will now see details of the army, including its unit types, its supplies, and most importantly for now, its commander. You can swap the commander out to anybody in your court, and it's a good idea to have a commander in charge with a bigger advantage number, as well as appropriate commander traits. The former plays a massive role in determining how a battle goes, as the commander with the bigger advantage number in a battle will have a literal advantage in battle, and the latter can be important in specific circumstances, depending on the trait. Armies are moved by selecting them and right-clicking anywhere on the map to send the army there. They can embark and move onto the water at a fee, and you can set waypoints by holding down Shift and right-clicking multiple times on the map. Sometimes you'll use waypoints to avoid potential threats, and other times you'll use waypoints to avoid attrition. Every holding has a supply limit, and you can see it by hovering over it. This supply limit determines how many soldiers can stand on or march through that holding without suffering from attrition and taking losses. This is soldiers from any of the multiple factions. So if you and your allies come together at a location and your number of soldiers is beyond the supply limit collectively, you will suffer attrition. While it's not always an option to avoid attrition using waypoints, you can also opt to split an army into smaller parts to move it through an area where it might otherwise take attrition in large numbers. Just be wary of being attacked unprepared. As soldiers move around, you'll see small arrows pointing to where they're headed. If the arrow is golden, it means it's not too late for the army to halt the order. If it's gray, it means the army has moved past the point of no return, and now the order is locked in. This is a great way to determine when an army is guaranteed to be at a certain location, and paying attention to when an army is locked into a certain move can help you give your own orders in such a way as to force the enemy into unfavorable battles. Beware, the AI will do the same to you. Hovering over an army will also tell you where it's going and how long it'll take to get there, and you can use that to plan your own moves as well. Moving into the same space as an enemy army will let you know a battle is imminent and the icon on the map will give you a quick read as to who is likely to win and why. When two opposing armies occupy the same holding, they engage in battle. Battles will last some time as dice are rolled, numbers are whittled down, and morale is dropped on either side, and during this time, reinforcements can be sent in by either side to prolong the battle and help tip it in their favor. There is a lot to cover as far as battles are concerned, so we'll do a deeper dive into them later. As of now, know that battles take into consideration the commander advantage, their commander trait, the men-at-arms, and any counters to them, and the terrain being fought on, and the number of soldiers. When an army marches into an enemy holding that has a fort but no army, the attacking army begins a siege. Sieges only last a maximum number of months as indicated by the siege details window and as determined by the fort level of the besieged fort. In order for a siege to proceed, the besieging army needs to outnumber the defenders, and the larger the army, the faster the siege will proceed. Siege weapon men-at-arms will help speed sieges up as well, as will commander traits and random events that occur. Either way, when the bar fills up, the siege is won, and if all the fortified holdings in a county have been successfully taken in this manner, the entire holding is considered occupied for the purposes of war score. The capital is always a fortified holding, but sometimes there's more than one in a county that needs taken care of. Once all the battling and sieging is done and the war is won, you should return your army to your own territory and disband them. And since it costs a lot to maintain a raised army, you'll want to disband them when not needed anyway. This was a long video, yes, and we haven't even touched on all the little details. But hopefully, today you've learned enough to be equipped with all the basic tools you need to conquer the world of Crusader Kings 3, no matter where you choose to make your mark. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more guides, tips, and tricks for Crusader Kings 3, let me know with a like and a comment down below. And if you have a particular topic you'd like to see covered, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely take it into consideration. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.